All right, are we all ready? All right, I'll call the meeting to order. It looks like 101-ish.
Okay, good. Got everybody.
Now let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we have the roll call, Rebecca?
Okay. Director Thomas,
I'm here.
Director Davidson,
Here.
Director Ratterman,
Here.
Director Underhill,
Here.
President Cicada.
Here. Public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration. No action can be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have any public comment out in remote land? Any public comment in here? Seeing none? Moving on to agenda item 3, consent agenda. The following items are expected to be routine, non-controversial. Items will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that an item be removed for later discussion. Does anybody want to pull anything or make a motion?
Move for acceptance. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Passes. Moving on to new business. Item 4A, discussion action granting PG&E a public utility easement through district-owned parcel APN 034-004-062. That would be Charles or Damon. Hi, Damon.
Hey, I'll pick this up for Charles. So just to be clear, this is a parcel on, I would call it the backside of Forest Meadows, or we could say the south side. It's facing the Stanislaus River Canyon. And CCWD has a parcel that they received via condemnation mid-'80s related to the North Fork project. And as Michael described to the engineering committee yesterday, this was in relation to looking for another source of supply for water post the flumes burning on the backside. Was that the Darby fire?
Potential alternative. The only other location where you could dig the intersection for.
So it's on what's called the Addit 4 Road, and so that's that structure you see in that image depicted is the other possible site to be able to, 1, get a hold of water, and 2, discharge water from Forest Meadows should we ever have to on via an NPDES permit. So in that adjudication of this property, an easement was provided to the neighboring property owner to be able to traverse the southern portion of our property for public utility easement, access easements, et cetera. And the property owner has asked through PG&E that we relocate the PG&E portion of the easement to the northern portion of the property, which is that bold yellow line you see depicted traveling basically from the power lines over to the neighboring property, which is the requester. So this was reviewed both by staff and Matt to look for any red flags associated with the easement request. And the only one that really came up was associated with telecom and cell service related to PG&E having a 30-foot public utility easement along properties. And the district would basically like to retain any consideration of where cell towers go or where telecom may appear in relation to that easement. But other than that, staff find no issue with approving the easement.
Is this property close at all? Is the slurry line close by any of this?
No.
No. Thank you. Directors, any comments, questions?
Move for acceptance.
Second.
Discussion. I would just like to hear a little bit more about the potential for using this as a water access point. It was true that the tunnel goes right directly below that circular structure. Tell me more about how that might affect us in the future.
It's, I mean, it's been looked at in the past. I don't know, I'm not aware of any recent work that's being done on that. It's just it was drilled during the Darby fire or after the Darby fire as a potential emergency supply, because you could tap the tunnel there and divert it into the lower half of the upper Utica ditch below where the flumes that were damaged. But I'm not aware of any recent efforts to develop that as a alternative tunnel tap site.
Well, of course, at the Hunter facilities, and the water comes gushing out of there because it's the water is under pressure at that point.
More pressure there.
Would there be a similar pressure availability?
Higher pressure. It's a little bit further downhill.
What is that structure? Is it a building?
I think
Tank?
there's a small structure there, if I remember correctly, but it was a hole was bored and never used.
And is there a need for a pump, or is the pressure sufficient that if you open it up, it'd just pop up?
I mean, really, there's no need for any water infrastructure there right now. But no, if it were tapped, it's high pressure.
And it's set up to where even if we granted this easement, we could still access if we had to develop it at some time.
Yeah, I mean, that was my first question, but the easement, what we realized was the easement's already there. This is just changing the nature of it a little bit. So it's not that we're giving up any control over this parcel.
Well, we fairly frequently hear the term use it or lose it on water rights and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
don't know whether there's any, no potential at all to use that water.
It doesn't increase our ability to use that water. No, it would be an alternative conveyance site, but it wouldn't increase the ability.
You know, cannabis ranch may come in there and want to use it one day, but it's all big parcels back in there, isn't it? They're all 40-acre plus, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken. You know, so it's not, doesn't have a lot of development interest. It would be,
No.
you know, kind of be like our Lancha Plana well, you know,
There's
there's no-
it's pretty remote back
no
there.
distribution method.
No.
You know,
Okay.
I just want to, we spoke about this yesterday at the engineering, and David had mentioned that we were going to reserve the potential for any telecommunication agreement would have to come after the fact.
That's correct.
And wouldn't be part of this as they had requested.
That's correct.
So if they do ever decide they want to sell thing out there on the power lines, that they would have to come back to us and negotiate.
That's right.
Any other discussion?
I did have
Oh,
a point. I'm sorry, in the easement deed, we would have to have that language in the
Yeah.
restoration of the cell tower.
Right.
Into it, I had written it in before, but somehow it did not make it into the agenda item. So it was
Jeff.
just one sentence.
do you need to withdraw your motion and restate it saying including that?
No, I mean, I
Okay.
will if you want, but
No, if you feel we have to, I will, otherwise we're good.
We have an understanding.
yeah.
Okay. All right, no further discussion. We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None?
Yeah.
So that-
Public comment on that.
Oh. I
And
was
I
doing
just
so
noticed,
good.
and I just noticed that the general manager at Utica Water and Power is on the line. So Joel, any recent developments at Addit 4?
No, nothing new.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, nice to see you all.
Sorry to put you on the spot right there.
No worries.
Sounds like you got some of your staff in the background.
I'm actually home with COVID right now, unfortunately.
Oh.
And
Oh, sorry to hear that. I heard the baby squeaking.
yeah, so the whole family got to share in the joy. So we're isolating together.
Sounds a little congested. Well, I hope you get better soon, Joel.
Thank you.
Any public comment regarding our item 4A?
No.
Any others out there? All right. For the next items, do I ask for public comment? Before I vote, thank you. Let's see if I can figure that out. All right, so 4A passed, we'll move on to 4B. Discussion action regarding amendment of the on-call services contractor consultant list, and that would be Damon.
Hello again. So the district maintains an on-call list of contractors and consultants that we can draw from to resolve critical tasks in a timely manner. This list of consultants includes entities that we have a positive ongoing working relationship, or we're currently working with in some fashion, or each of them have representatives that we have all worked with in the past and have a respect for and have a positive working relationship. So what the on-call consultant list allows us to do is streamline some of the requirements that are in our purchasing policy, namely for contractual work or construction work. We can obtain a cost estimate or a quote for the work, and we can circumvent the bid process, the timing associated with issuing a request for bids, and same with on the consultant side. Excuse me, we can go ahead and ask for a cost and then go ahead and provide an approval to do the work. It doesn't mean that we can provide approval for unbudgeted work efforts. These would all have to have money within, whether it be the CIP or the operations budget, to do the work. It's just that we could then approve folks on this list to get work done quickly.
What do you go through, Damon, to have somebody put on a list? What's your process like?
Well, so it's based on experience, so history with either the entity as a whole or representatives associated with the entity. And so you'll have a lot of the local folks, Weber Geo, Nordall, who we work with closely, not just within district specific projects, but they might have projects regionally that we're involved in. And then you have construction companies that we have history with, CTC Construction or Mazingo, who have done work for the district or with the district in the past. So that's generally how the list is developed. And then this list, I think the last update was approximately 7 years ago. So
Right,
this,
because you have Stantec, who has merged with another company, I know.
yeah, so there was some work to cull companies that were no longer applicable also. Oh, so the ask is that the board go ahead and approve the list of on-call consultants and contractors, so that should the district find itself in need in the future, we can go ahead and deploy the services of these.
We don't make a call to them to ask them if there's been any kind of changes to their, ownership or anything. We just-
So for the list, that work was done. So some of the entities stayed, there was no change, but for a fair amount of them, there was a change or an update that took place.
We move for acceptance.
Second,
Do we have any public comment? Seeing no public comment, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Seeing none opposed, you have permission. It's
Thank you.
updated.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 5, old business. Discussion direction regarding redistricting following the 2020 census.
So take this one for Brad, and we do have a PowerPoint and a handout. The handout includes a lot of background information that I'll talk about as I work through the PowerPoint. Apologize if it's a little bit disorganized, that's my fault. And hopefully it all makes sense though as I work on the way through the presentation. So can we share this? And I want to start with just an overview of where we were. So at the last meeting, staff presented a proposal. First of all, I really should start with just, I can't say enough about the amount of work and expertise that Brad has put into this. And it's just phenomenal. Each one of these models is a significant amount of work. He's done, I don't know how many different runs, different scenarios that we've run through. And it's just really phenomenal, the skill and expertise he has to get us through this. And there's, the primary consideration is population distribution. There are other considerations that we've talked about, I think, at length in multiple different board meetings. One of the pieces of feedback we got from the board at the last meeting was to take a look at whether we could add or create a more equal distribution of customers. And one of the, I just want to talk about that point a little bit before I start to get into the data and the updated proposal. I think a couple of things that are really important to remember. First of all, this is a really unique district. We have, our outer boundaries are coterminous with the county. But our service areas obviously are very defined, and they're much smaller portions of the county. And there's lots of other water services and wastewater service providers in the county that are all spread throughout our county-wide jurisdiction. That's a pretty unique set of circumstances, and it creates this dynamic that we have where we have a huge geographic portion of the county where we have very few customers. So we went through this exercise of trying to figure out if there's a way to create a more equal distribution of customers while also maintaining the equal distribution of population that we're required to achieve and not divide up communities in a way that doesn't make sense as far as representation goes. So really, I think the conclusion that we came to is that there's really not unless you really start to create districts that carve up communities in a way that I don't think would make sense, it's really difficult to strike that balance. So we ran a couple of different models in this last effort, and so I'm going to go out of order here a little bit. But if we go to proposal number 2. Yes, in PowerPoint. So this one is a concept that we kind of talked about, I think, last time, where if we were to create what we kind of call an upcountry division. So that it would include West Point, but it would also extend over to the Stanislaus to include St. Connell and Dorrington. And CCWD actually has a fair amount of customers right there. So when we actually ran the model, we found that added about 1,000, 1,500 customers.
Is that attachment A5 on page 12 in
In that data packet.
yeah, just to try and,
Will be proposal
it looks like,
proposal 2 up here.
Proposal number 2, yeah.
Okay.
I'm 12.
Yes, this one right here.
Yeah, that's the one. Page 12 in that data packet, yeah. So it does a much better job of customer distribution. As you can see in that table, it adds about 1,500 customers to Division 2. But the end result would be, the more we look at the end result of one representative representing the West Point area and Camp Connell and Dorrington, where we have a much higher population density and a much higher number of customers. It's foreseeable to see it may be hard for anybody in West Point to be successful in that district as a candidate. And there's really not a lot in common. You can get from one to the other without driving all the way down to 49 in the winter. So it didn't seem like that would be fair to the northern portion of the county within Division 2 to have that population dynamic.
Let's talk about that just 1 second. I sort of agree with you. But if you're worried that this community here with X population versus this one over here, the high country versus there, and that West Point area would potentially not have an option because the high country has so many populations. But doesn't that hold true for other divisions though? I mean, there's a big population in the other divisions, so is that really
I think the
a
only,
point to
the only
make?
one that I recall, from years past, that, paying attention to the elections and stuff is, Angels Camp and Copperopolis, where we don't have any ratepayers in Angels Camp. It would be very easy to get a directive from an Angels Camp because the actual voting rules are pretty darn equal. If not, there may be more in Angels. I'm not even positive anymore. I haven't looked at it, but so I mean, we could create that situation there as well.
Dennis Dooley was the last one.
So is that really a point to say that's maybe not a good idea to have the high country? That's all. I was
Right,
saying.
no.
To your
And,
point, oh, sorry.
and I think one of the stipulations in here, or one of the points is the fact that we want to establish community. And so West Point is, everybody loves West Point. But what community feeling do they have with someone up in Cottage Springs?
Yeah, community of interest is the
Uh-huh,
word.
uh-huh.
Right, and I don't think we run into that issue in any of the other districts. We definitely have to make, and the county has had to make this decision too, we have to make trade-offs, we have to draw the line somewhere in a way that is going to potentially, divide community, but in a way which we can try to minimize the impact and try to do that in a way where we're not combining communities that are disjointed from each other. And I think that's the problem we ran into when we tried to.
Let me
create
ask
that
my
country district.
fellow board members here, what do you see the differences between West Point community and the high country? Can you give me an example of what you think the difference is?
Just proximity and interconnectivity, just, you have to, it would take you, from driving from West Point to Cottage Springs would be an hour and 15 minutes or something on the road, maybe more.
Maybe more, and I think proportion of vacation home, second home is
Their water source, their sewer system,
water source is
Maybe.
different.
they're separate systems.
Yeah, the topography is different, geography is different, and the community of interest, I think, is the biggest one. They don't shop or see never would ever see each other. I mean, or they wouldn't, you didn't stumble
Okay.
across
Right,
I get it.
because
community of interest.
West Point comes to Jackson and Upcountry comes down.
They go to Sonora.
Okay, I just wanted to hear what everybody's thought. Thank you.
Yeah, no, but that is kind
No, that
of,
was helpful.
at first in concept, it kind of made sense because they do share there are some similarities, right, on the forest management front, for example, or,
Oh,
there are
right,
some
right.
areas where there are some intersections, but really, once we started to dive more into that, it seemed like they're just too disjointed for that to make sense, that upcountry division to make sense. So that was the option that we ran in response to the board's request to look into whether there's a way to do that. The other thing that Brad did that I think is an interesting exercise is the customer population-based redistricting option. So, yeah. Yeah. So this is a model output. This is not something that staff put forward as a recommended alternative. But the purpose of it is to demonstrate.
Do we have that in our packet? Do we have that one?
The
Yeah.
gray boundary lines.
It's just a couple of pages past.
PowerPoint.
14? Oh, 14. Page 14.
Page 14 of that data packet. So this is not one of the options we're recommending considering, but I think it's a useful exercise to show, because what we did here was, told the robot, give us districts where there are equal representation of customers and
Right.
equal representation of population. And you see the numbers where we achieved that. But in order to achieve that, you literally have to carve up every single population center in the county in ways that I think we all recognize would not make sense. So you're cutting Angels Camp in half, you're cutting Copperopolis in half, you're cutting the Ennis Pass service area in half, Jenny Lane, all of these things that, San Andreas, we have to carve up all these, or the model, I should say, not we, have to carve up all of those population centers.
Just to give
I
a
don't think any of us
equal.
would say support that community of interest objective. But it's an interesting exercise to just, I think it illustrates the point that we have this unique situation where we have this, big geographic area, a huge portion of that geographic area has very few customers in it. So I think the inevitable result here is, in order for us to strike that balance of equal representation, which means population, not customers, we are going to end up with at least one district that has significantly fewer customers.
Question for you, access, is there a direct access from West Point over? Or we're still talking about,
Or to what? How we-
Over to-
That
yeah,
high- that
over to
upcountry
District
division.
Three.
branch.
Swiss Ranch Road.
But
comes
that,
across.
that's way down into.
No one else has.
Yeah, you need to reach.
There is nothing besides,
Some of those back roads up there.
Yeah, no, it's good.
No.
It's great for hunting and getting away, but
there are plenty of forest roads, in other words.
Right, they're forest roads, right. So that's what led us to, sorry, again, to go out of order, but to proposal number one in the presentation. And really what this is just two slight modifications of, well, before I skip off to that point again, real fast, I think it's also important to note that because of the nature of CCWD, the fact that there aren't an equal distribution of customers in a particular division doesn't mean that we're less involved in that part of the county. And I think Division 2 is actually a good example of that, where we don't have very many customers, but we have a lot of work that we focus on the following in terms of water rights, our relationship with CCWD, our water supply contract with them is obviously critically important in the district. The relationship with San Andreas Sanitary, the relationship with all of those communities, the forest management, forest health work that we do up in the McCallum headwaters. It's a huge part of the work that the district does, even though we don't have
Of the customers,
customers.
right.
So in that sense, it does make sense to make sure that area still has an equal representation in terms of population, in terms of customers. So what we did after the last board meeting, we made one change that we had to make was we had to make sure that our boundary lines match the boundary lines of census tracts. We can't go outside of those lines. And I never realized until recently just how arbitrary those lines seem. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to them. But we had to make sure that whatever this board ends up adopting follows census boundary tracts in order for those to be utilized by the county. So that was one way to make minor adjustments in the proposal that we presented last time to account for that. We also had direction from the board to basically tighten up the population distribution a little bit more from what we had before. I think previously we had 26% in Division 4 in the Copperopolis area, which we know is going to experience some growth and was too high for the starting point. So we went back and adjusted some of those boundaries because the District 3 boundary, the District 3 population was low, below the 20% mark. So we shifted that boundary closer to Angels Camp. So our Vallecito customers would still be in Division 4, but more of that population around Murphy's would shift into District 3. It doesn't shift in customers, we don't serve that area.
Right.
But it evens out that population a little bit more. We also shifted some of that population near Angels Camp along Highway 49, between Highway 49 and San Andreas, between Angels Camp and San Andreas, into Division 1, which was also significantly below the average as far as population in the last proposal. So the result of all of that, we shifted a little bit more into Division 2 as well. The result of all of that really tightens up the population distribution around that 20% mark that would be ideal. It gets it pretty close to that mark for each of these divisions of the current proposal. So that is the proposal that we're putting forward as the adjustments that we made after the last board meeting, that we think the objectives.
This is page 9.
This is,
Mhm.
Details and additional slides and attachment packet, page 9 through 11. Michael, I understand a little bit better now about keeping the communities together. Makes sense, I see the difference there. And with McCollum versus the Highway 4 Stanislaus Boulevard, makes sense. And with that being said, Sheep Ranch is very small. And Sheep Ranch goes down to Murphy's all the time, so why shouldn't Sheep Ranch go into District 3?
so that's a great question. And this what I mean, then it gets back to that point I was making where, we have to, it's not gonna be perfect. We've got to make some of those trade-offs. We actually shifted that line closer to District 3, even though we know most of those people are gonna access that through Avery Sheep Ranch Road. Right, but I think there's more in common between Sheep Ranch and West Point than some of the others.
Well, look how far they have to drive to get to West Point. They can be in Murphy's in 20 minutes.
Sheep Ranch is more associated with Mountain Ranch. I think Senders is a
But
hub.
there's no customers there, so if they wanted to go to a meeting, we're not gonna do it at Sender,
There
we're
are
gonna do it at West Point.
We serve water at Sheep Ranch. So there are
No, I know
customers.
Sheep Ranch, I'm talking Mountain Ranch.
Oh, right. No,
Yeah,
that's-
so
but
the
that's a
meetings that
population.
are gonna be held will be held in West Point. I mean, that's the argument you gave me from West Point to the High Country, and I agree with you. The communities are different. The Sheep Ranch one, though, that community, which is very small, they go to Murphy's. They don't go to Senders, for shopping. And I know this because I know people there. It is in my district currently. Not that I want to get rid of them, but if you want to talk about keeping communities, closer to their service center or whatever, I think Sheep Ranch should go over into District 2 or
It's-
3,
so
sorry.
the problem, the balance we're trying to strike is keeping that community, those communities of interest together as much as we can, but also the population distribution. So we're trying to find ways to move more population into Division 2 in a way that makes sense in terms of community of interest. So Sheep Ranch and West may not be a perfect fit as far as community of interest goes, but it's not that far off.
I'm gonna be
In
honest.
population, as far as population goes, we didn't want to take any more population away from Division 2.
I'm going to be honest and say something, and I hope nobody out there gets offended. But the way I look at this is it's dividing up more of a potential lower income and no vacation homes by District 2. That's how it looks to me. I mean, there's some high value homes, but not many. And then the other districts have a lot more of the vacation homes and the higher interest. So it looks to me like we're carving out, or here's like potentially
Vacation.
the lower income type things. And I don't know.
But if the construction hasn't happened in District 2, and it has in District 3,
I'm
That's-
just saying, I'm
And I-
gonna go with whatever you guys want. It's just,
I didn't see the words vacation homes in the election code either.
I guess what I'm saying is, when you made the comment that the people have to drive all the way from West Point to High Country, I agree with that, but you also said West Point may not have as much people to represent them because it'll be harder for them to get elected because there's more people over there. And seems to me there's not a lot of people that want to get on the board, and maybe if they did have somebody in a larger population, if you will, to pick from in that area that do want to get more involved could be more helpful. I don't know.
It could be, there's a lot of,
So
you
when I
know,
bring up policy that want to help all the, the disadvantaged communities, just keep that in mind. That's my job.
Well, no, absolutely. I mean, we don't take income into account when we
I know.
look at this. But we definitely do look at what we think where those communities have commonalities and where, access is the other issue. Just the proximity to some of those communities.
That's okay.
It's not, I don't think there's any way to do it, and there's no perfect solution here, otherwise it'd be easy. But like I said, the dividing line there between Division 2 and Division 3 on Sheep Ranch Road is trying to strike that balance of population and communities of interest. And you could pick a point on that, on that road and make an argument for that location.
Well, at this point, you guys are asking to, you're recommending proposal 1. Is the board, any board member want to make a motion?
I don't, is this up for a vote today?
No,
Oh,
there's no vote today. What we would have to do, so this has to be a public hearing. So we wanted to get direction from the board that if we want to move forward with this proposal, then we'll notice a public hearing and bring it back for adoption.
and public hearings would be here.
Mike?
That's just one.
Can I make a comment here,
yes.
Ms. Prez?
That's Madam Prez. Yes, please.
Okay, looking at the statistics here, the population proportionalities look really pretty good. But let's consider the ramifications of what Cindy is suggesting, taking Sheep Ranch. I don't know how many people that would take over from 2 to 3, but looking, it's conceivable that could, on the customer number at currently 5%, it could conceivably take it to 4%. And then it would also take District 3 or Division 3 from 45 to 46 or something. It's already high. It's going to be a lot higher. I mean, the target on population anyway is supposed to be, 2020, 2020. But I like the configuration. I like the numbers. Changing them to put Sheep Ranch over there doesn't make much sense to me.
No, right.
No, and if we're looking at population, I agree with you, Director Thomas. And if we're looking at populations, which election code says we're supposed to be looking at populations, not customers, it would take more. District 3 is already in the recommended proposal that we have in front of us is already the highest percentage of population, and adding Sheep Ranch would just increase it. And District 2 is not expected to grow in the next 10 years as much as probably the other 4 districts will.
District 5 is actually the highest.
Yeah.
Yeah, District 3 is a little bit above.
Oh, right.
We could, and then the other balance we had to strike here in terms of moving that District 3 boundary and between 3 and 4, was there are some customers in there. There's 6 Mile, there's Vallecito, Douglas Flat. So we were trying to move population and so to get both of those closer to 20%. The District 3 was under and District 4 was way over. But trying to draw up that so that we weren't shifting too many customers. So that's why you see Vallecito is still in District 4. It did shift Doug Flat and 6 Mile into District 3, so there's a relatively small number of customers. But that's kind of the balance we were trying to strike. We don't want Director Underhill to have any more customers.
I want.
Division 3.
How many do I want?
Increase that imbalance in it more than you have to, while still trying to strike the balance on the population. So
I'd vote for proposal number 1 when it's brought up.
And I second it.
Well, I still don't know how D1 and D5 are separated. I'm assuming that this is Silver Rapids, and then it goes back And I just don't understand how this loop is here, because we've left out, there's Quail Oak Road back here somewhere.
Yeah. It's right along that boundary, so it's Silver.
Pardon?
Oh, it's,
Kind of on that, that
yeah,
doesn't tell me.
it's still, I don't think we need quite into that level of detail. Silver Rapids up to Quail Ridge and over to 12.
Up to Quail Ridge.
Or Quail, what is it?
It looks like Silver Rapids to Henny, and then it goes up, and then that's where I don't know where it goes out the back, because that's a back, there's really no road there. I mean, there might be one little
Again,
thing,
that's
but
where
then there,
the-
but that Quail Oaks Road does run all the way through.
No.
Yes, it does.
To 12?
Yes.
Well, it may, but we have to stay on the census tract. We can't pick the road. So we have to
So
follow.
where's that census tract?
That's the line that we've drawn here. And I can show you an even greater detailed version of this.
Could you send us this map, each of us in an email so we can have time to look at it between now and when we do vote?
Yes.
Just to
Something
get,
that we can actually
just to get,
zoom back
Yeah.
to.
right.
There's so many options, it's hard to go through them, but if you just have, I think this one's pretty close. I just kind of want to see where this boundary goes.
Yeah, because I asked if we could put street names.
We can
On
do
it.
that and we would make it publicly.
Yeah, that would help
If we
us.
make any changes, like I said, it is a lot of work to run one of these models. So if we make any changes, we'll hold off. If the board wants to take a look at another round of maps, we won't publicly notice a hearing, and we're getting very close to the deadline. So
I think it's close. I just want to know, I mean, I'm completely losing pretty much, well, all of La Contenna.
yeah, Rock Tennis just
You get walls.
District 5 into District 1.
You get what you want.
And that was both because of population and that was one way we were able, because District 1 used to have, I think 3% of the customers, or something along those lines, even less than Division 2. But there was a way to shift, that was a very small change in the boundary line here, and we were able to shift population and customer base into District 1 in a way that we think makes sense for the community. The Jenny Lind area is just a really densely populated area.
First you were talking about how poor the people were in West Point, now you're talking about the people in Jenny Lind being dense.
It's densely populated.
Okay.
When did you develop a sense of humor? That's rare.
I guarantee you.
My- I asked,
Let's move on with
okay,
this. and-
well, no, I'm going to ask for something.
All right.
Please.
Denied.
I'd like to know the change in customers in each district. Could you put that in parentheses?
Numbers?
Yeah.
That's here. So
You gotta flip the page.
those
That's a different
tables,
page.
that's what's presented here.
Where?
The customer numbers.
No.
This is what it used to be.
Oh, okay, excuse
This is
me.
what it used to
Oh,
be.
This one right here is. the-
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We can do that. We can put them side by side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you, I mean, we don't do this very often. And,
Next time we'll do it.
I'm pretty close to the ratepayers in that Douglas Flat area. And I'm wondering, La Contenna is gonna not have, if this is all approved, Jeff won't be the representative. I wonder if you should send out something, whether it's on billing to the affected customers, that it's being redistricted, the lines are being changed, so they have an option to make sure they're really aware to come in and make their comments, because I know Jeff is very active with La Contenna, and if all of a sudden they just woke up one day and went, not that they don't like Scott, but you know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying? It might be really nice for us to reach out and just say, hey, we're looking at doing this, even sending them the potential map just to those affected, which is the Douglas Flat customers, La Contenta, you said, McCollum Hill, right? If they're going to be in the district.
And you're
Two.
changing Murphy's also because we came
Yeah.
down Main Street.
I think we should put something out
Yeah.
there so that way they know, because they're going to be affected. They could wake up one day and have it different. Not that anybody wouldn't do a good job for them, but I just think it would be a good customer service. Let's get them out there and do our due diligence to notify them that there is a potential change. It looks like this proposal number 1 is the one that we want to put forward. So I would recommend that.
We'll do some public outreach on it. I don't know that it would be bill inserts because the timing of that is challenging.
Okay.
But we can definitely get the word out.
Am I, so did we even discuss, I mean, we talked about proposal 2. What's the significant difference?
That's the upcountry division.
The upcountry, yeah.
So it's really just that boundary on the eastern end of District 3. You can see it cuts through the other class service area there. There's some other changes because
Well, it did take the percentage of population, I mean, the percentage of customers, it got even that out a lot.
right, so that was the point of that exercise, but that's what we were talking about. You know, we were able to shift the customers, but it didn't, you know, as far as community of interest goes, it didn't make any sense.
Oh, because of the yeah, okay. I gotcha.
And is there an option that we just keep it the way it is? I know we don't like how that little was carved out the way it currently is, but have we had any complaint?
We do the right thing here before we get complaints.
Yeah, that's it, for sure.
Questions about it? I haven't characterized them as complaints, but I definitely get
Well, and you know, over the last, you know, however long we've had this, I mean, the areas we thought were gonna grow have grown, albeit slow because of, you know, economic reasons, but, you know, it is not unreasonable to think that we're gonna continue some growth down country, and we should be trying to take the precautions to get that squared away.
Well, I mean, with the upcountry, with all the fire hazards, you know, you can't get insurance. So the probability of building up there is going to be pretty slim. You know, people don't like getting burned out.
Yeah, it could be.
I wanted to ask you about District 5. There's very little potential for growth in Rancho, right? Yeah. So,
yeah, so our sort of our expectation and how we drew that was that there's more potential for growth in the proposed District 1 than there will be in the proposed District 5.
mhm.
And so that's why we tried to tighten up the population numbers a little bit, but we still left District 1
And
underneath, you know, below the 20% mark and District 5 above.
So,
Wallace has some, I mean, we got,
yeah.
a small development going there, and Rancho still has lots. I mean, it isn't like they can't,
Yeah.
you know, they may be, you know, there's more marginal lots, but, you know, there is a little bit, but.
But if they built 1,000 houses there, it would only add a couple of thousand in population. So is it still 2.3 persons per household assumption?
Generally.
But anyway, I like this. Scott, we could have a meeting out on Hogan Dam Road. Look at that.
Can we?
That little appendage out there where District 1 and District 4.
Yeah, those lines are, like I said, they're
Oh,
all
yeah.
track lines, so that's how we end up with these, it looks like, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
that-
my 3-year-old.
Then we could go over to my house and have some iced tea.
All right, so we ready to move on?
By the pool.
Okay, so the direction it sounds like is we will move forward with proposal 1. We'll provide a more detailed map and we'll do some public outreach to make sure we spread the word.
And you can
Alright.
get the directors that map sooner than later?
Yeah.
Okay.
Post it, maybe we'll post it on our website and send you the link.
Is Brad on?
I believe he is.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna have Michael tell you, if you weren't on, that this whole proposal just hit a brick wall with all the directors, and you have to start over again, buddy.
That's okay. I think we've gotten to a good place. As far as the map goes, we should have that for everyone soon using a Google Maps platform. So just look out for a link where you'll be able to click and zoom in, type addresses, see where everything is. Should have that to you real soon here.
Good job, Brad.
Good
Thank you.
job, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
When would this go into effect?
It will go into effect immediately.
So there'll be change in the middle of terms.
It doesn't impact, it doesn't impact current
Right.
directors. So if it were to relocate any of the directors, you would still retain, you would stay in office for the term representing the same district. You may have to run for a different district next time around, but it wouldn't affect current representation.
So
I think I'm the only one that's out
what do you mean?
of where I'm at right now. where I
Oh.
live. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'll get over it.
And so, with me, I'm gonna finish out this year. So do I keep my current boundaries or my boundaries will change? Even though I'm still here,
So that-
it'll change during my midterm or whatever.
So Division 2, 3, and 4 are up for election this year. All of those elections will be, the election this year will be for the new district.
This year?
Okay, for the new district lines. Okay, so I'm gonna keep
Yeah, that's.
my current district until
December.
December.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that being said, as much as the outreach, I just wanted them to know if they were gonna be switching.
Yeah, it doesn't switch.
Represented.
No.
Then we're probably okay, because that'll be, I don't know if you have to do so much, just because I think they'll know it when they go to vote.
And all of this has been, this is 3 or 4 different meetings we've had that have been publicly.
Okay,
It's drawn
All
a
right.
lot of attention from for the entire county.
As we always do.
all right, moving on.
Thank you.
Ready? Move on? Okay. So we're gonna go to item number 6A, and we are going to reschedule that to a future meeting, potentially March. We're not certain, but you will let us know, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, reports for 6B, report on the January 2022 operations and engineering departments. That would be Damon, right? 6B?
Are we at 6A?
We just, we postponed that to a future meeting. Where were you? I did something right on the agenda. I was pretty pleased. Hi, Damon.
Hello, how are you all again?
Good.
All right. So there has, January brought a bunch of work efforts for engineering and operations. It's just always really surprising when I go through the submissions from the supervisors, how much work they have completed month over month. I think this month in particular, when you look at the electrical department, we've got 40 plus items, and most of those are associated with troubleshooting SCADA systems, replacing pumps, rewiring different components throughout all our facilities. So it's just really kind of, it's always impressive to look at the amount of work staff accomplish month over month. And so with this department report, there's the classics are here, as they always are monthly, but also want to highlight some of the mechanical work effort that was done in the month of January. So if you could advance the slide for me, por favor. I think there's, yeah, it's like, yeah. So, just more of the same service lateral replacement. We have 3 repair clamps on an active leak, or on a service lateral with an active leak off Bartle Link and Rancho. So you'll see our underground crew moving hot and heavy on this within the next few weeks. We do have some of those positions for that crew are still out, and so we'll hopefully interview with her soon, and we can push it forward. Next slide, por favor. This is an interesting one. This is an example of what we would call a water hammer. So you see the image on your left, Jenny Lynn Vista. You can see a T, a newly installed T with a service line right in the middle with some brass fittings. tap settle. And then the image on the right is what was taken out of the ground, a 2-inch main with a service T and a service line. And you can see the main on the bottom of the pipe was blown out. And then if you advance the slide, you can see that so was the T. So oftentimes when you have areas of higher pressure and folks might have a plumber at their place doing some work and they shut that water line off too quickly, this can often happen. So we don't always, sometimes it's pretty evident where the issue occurred and who did it, but this one was not. But nonetheless, we were called out to make a repair on our end. So water hammer is very real and it does cause seepage.
And so someone, a plumber just working at a residence, turning the water off too quickly?
Yeah, or,
That-
well, and we also, our friends in the fire department or
I've heard about that.
oftentimes, yeah. So it can be both. It depends. It's usually, it's a lot more rare with plumbers, but it has happened. I mean, you see it here and there. Especially if it's like, hey, turn that on. Oh my gosh, oh wait, turn that off. I mean, and the next thing you know, you've got a shock wave going through the water line and you can cause issues. So, quite a few fire hydrant replacements in the lower end. The field guys, the distribution crew did a great job working with construction and replacing at least 3 in the staff report. So here's one on Montero. See the old hydrant on the left, exposing it, getting ready to cut it out. You can see that there's no valve. And then the new setup on the right with the foot valve, the shoe, the fire hydrant, and then the isolation valve getting ready to go in. Next slide.
Damon, before you go for
Yeah.
another view, are there breakaway bolts at the bottom flange on those?
There are, yes. And they have saved us quite a few times. I think the one that comes to mind, I think it was last year on Little John Road, we had a fire hydrant that was hit sometime over the weekend,
Right.
late at night, and staff driving into work were like, oh, hey, look at that. There's just a fire hydrant laying on the
And they
ground.
seal themselves off.
Yeah, the shoe
That's awesome.
valve was sealed.
Unbelievable. That's great.
And yeah, and the shear bolts just sheared the hydrant clean off. And
What
so
do we-
here's
What
kind
do
of.
we do with what do we do with the old ones? The old,
So we.
Russ wants you to put them in a basket and say.
Don't they have them out here for the pets to use?
So we have,
I would buy one to put it by my driveway so that I could write on the insurance application.
yeah, we usually scrap them, but
come on.
we've also given them to some of the different fire protection groups and they train with them. So they can practice opening them and closing them.
I need one.
I have one in
Yeah.
front of my house just.
Next slide, please. So here's another one I believe we have coming up. I think it's on Ripon. Yeah, so this one, you can see Doug on the left, have to cut this thing out. And then the old hydrant line in the trench on the right. Next slide. This is always we're working with here today. So here's some of the work associated with the mechanics. So you can see this is what we have installed at Vallecito on our equalization basin for sewage. And this is an odor control unit. So what goes on here is the pipe on the bottom feeding that 55-gallon drum is the vent of a sewer wet well. So all those odors before would just off gas into the cul-de-sac. And we were super popular with those neighbors in the cul-de-sac. They would call me and tell me about the smell all the time. And so we thought, well, we got to do something about this. And we implemented one of these at Vallecito to great success. And it's a 55-gallon drum filled with granular activated
This
carbon.
one's in Copperopolis.
This is in
Gotcha.
Copperopolis at our lift station 13, Lakeshore, I believe it's called, in Poker. And so just as a test, we went and let the neighbors know, hey, we're just going to put it in and we're going to run it because it plugs into a 110 outlet. That's a blower on the top and it literally sucks the air out of that wet well through the granular activated carbon and off gases it. It works really well, but it's loud. So we ordered a silencer for it and it's ugly. So, you know,
It is.
there's a lot of conjecture about what to do about it, the way it looks. And so we were gonna build a neat little outhouse and, you know, and match the color to the neighbors' homes and that doesn't really work too well. And then the neighbor directly behind it gave us a call and he says, you know, I have this rock over my propane tank. It's a giant fake rock. And so we've reached out to the company, they're local, right? And so they're gonna come out and take some dimensions and hopefully we can build a giant fake rock.
Great idea. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then because right now the real issue is the sound. It's pretty loud. And so.
I was gonna say the
Silencer-
aesthetics from an infrastructure nerd perspective, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, literally you can just plumb it right to the existing 2-inch vent and we're good. And that was really the concern is that it wouldn't be that the 2-inch piping is not enough to off-gas all that sewage being pushed into this wet well, because as lift station 12 pumps into lift station 13, it displaces all of those wonderful smells right out of that pipe. And we were worried this wouldn't be big enough. We were going to actually prepare to upsize it to 4-inch, but it's working great. So you can anticipate a nice big new rock at the end of the cul-de-sac here soon. And so, next slide, I think just a couple different depictions of what it looks like at the site. You can see the electrical panel associated with the wet well and then the manway right there that you see in front of the odor unit, that is to the dry can. So all the pumps that operate that lift station, that wet well, are in a neighboring, what we call a dry can, which is about 12 feet down. There's a little area to work in where the pumps live and where the control panel lives. So when we have staff that go down there, they have to wear what we call a gas sniffer that alerts them to any noxious or potentially dangerous, to a dangerous atmosphere. And so this really helps a lot.
There was some pretty loud complaints about odor down by the Kiva launch ramp several years ago. Would this solution have helped with that?
If it's related to lift station 18 down there, this will help. And so we've kind of taken the playbook from the sales rep and now we generate a ton of empty 55-gallon drums through the chemicals that we use for water and wastewater treatment. So we now know how to build these and we have pallets of granular activated carbon. So the reason I bring that up is if we get sustained complaints about odor issues, we can pretty effectively deploy one of these now and have good confidence that they're going to work.
How long does it take the charcoal to become deactivated?
It's about a year. Yeah.
Would it make any sense to have 2 barrels side by side so you can switch them out or?
I mean, it depends on the site, but yeah, we can definitely do that. What we're considering at.
Why inside? No, just 2 rocks.
Yeah,
Rather than,
or a lid on the rock, you know,
rather than picking it up and dumping it out and refilling it, just bring out another barrel and go.
Yeah.
Recharge somewhere else.
Yeah, staff are looking at placing them so they can just bring the boom of the vac on over, take the top off and just in 3 seconds, suck all the old carbon out. And then we can have a guy there with a bag and just fill it up. But yeah, definitely we'll look at that option for sure.
Well, most of us don't have a vac on. So.
Right, yeah. And this is a depiction of the mechanics working to install a new pump at the return pump station at the Arnold Belt Press. So the Arnold Belt Press takes all the solids out of the sewage treatment plant, squeezes them.
Yeah.
And all that liquid flows down into this return station that then pushes that liquid back into the headworks. So the image on the left is a depiction of that pump station, and then the image on the right is an operator watching the mechanics lower a new pump down into the station to connect it. And then this is a replacement of an actuator and valve in the Wallace wastewater treatment facility. So the mechanics are getting their hands on all kinds of different work efforts. And here we have, we were able to purchase a 35 kW propane power generator for about $3,000. This was last year. and it had very low hours on it. And so we deployed it out at our Indian Rock site. This is where we installed the new Orenco treatment system, and our mechanics did all the black iron plumbing for the propane and set the generator. And they also constructed a cover over it, a steel cover over it to protect it, that they fabricated in the shop.
How many KW?
It's 35. It's huge, and it'll run the whole site both. So we wired both. There's a east field and a west field for Indian Rock, and they both have associated pumps and return pumps and small buildings. We wired them together and we run them off one generator.
Was the generator stolen or something? How'd you get it?
We're not supposed to talk about that.
You know, I don't know the details. I know it had been sitting, covered, sitting under a deck for a while, and the person just couldn't make use of it.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So we had our mechanics check it out, and they said, you better buy that.
That's great, yeah.
I'd give you 4,000 for it.
Right, I know. I bet you would.
Let's do it.
All right.
And then want to highlight that we are flushing the distribution system in Rancho. So
Increased
the
revenue.
staff have gone out for, it was 2 days, the beginning 2 weeks ago, and then 2 days last week. And they continue to flush the distribution system unidirectionally. So understanding the hydraulics of the system, they shut valves and they isolate water flow, and then they push water at a high rate in order to scour any debris that might be on the pipe. They said they are definitely getting a lot of collected manganese out of the system. You can kind of see it.
Are we getting phone calls from the
I haven't
groundwater?
I haven't specifically got any, and I don't believe customer service has either yet.
I haven't heard about it.
Yeah, it's going really well. And with that, any
you,
additional
Damon.
questions or comments? This is an image of the newest Enterprise vehicle. This is our new mechanics truck.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Or maybe about half a dozen. On the AMI, there was a statement that said the new meter reading will fit right into our Tyler billing software, and that's working wonderfully.
I can probably dive into that. I report that thing. You want
Oh, shoot,
to take a stab at it?
Let's move
I
on
have
to
that.
general manager.
Yeah, it's definitely in process. I mean, I think Michael.
It's a team effort right now. That's for sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Damon.
Okay, then, this was a, pretty shocking to me, I guess. Hunter's Reservoir is much shallower than anticipated. That's kind of a,
Well, I don't think it was necessarily a shock.
Right.
We knew, as all of these reservoirs do, fill up with sediment over time. Hunters in particular, you can see it where the tulies are encroaching. The reservoir is just shallower than it used to be. I can tell you, when I was there, 2015, 2016 timeframe, right after tree mortality crisis, SPI came through and cleared a bunch of their land upstream of Hunter's Reservoir. And then we get a massive winter in 2016. And the amount of sediment that ran into the reservoir just in that 1 year was pretty significant. And it's been there for almost 100 years. So it's definitely, doesn't have the capacity that it used to have.
the Forest Meadows UV replacement project. How much our construction crew will be handling all that?
Yeah, so Charles spec'd the UV, the replacement UV unit. And then the district placed an order on that 2 months ago. It won't be here until next August. So there's 300,000 allocated for the project. The unit itself was roughly 180. And then our construction crew will do all the concrete. But we did talk about it in engineering committee yesterday though. And so there is some acknowledgement that we do have some really talented local folks that do a lot of really good concrete work. So we'll definitely discuss that as we get closer to August. But the current objective is for all of, pretty much all of the construction work, it'll be our crew, and then the electrical work will definitely be our electrical crew.
Okay. And there was reference to, what was that meteor? How do we describe storms now?
Oh, the atmospheric river storm? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is the new way. This
That
is
was, yeah,
the new
yes. There
language.
was still a ton of cleanup over New Year's. So folks in the field definitely wanted to highlight the fact that as January came, they were still out in the field dealing with these storm issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. That's all for construction, and I'll wait for Michael
okay.
to come give his report. Okay,
All right,
thanks.
general manager's report. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
All right, I was gonna lead off with meters. Like I said, it's definitely a big team effort. Damon's been really involved in it. Jessica's really involved in it. Kevin Williams is the lead on it on the engineering side. But it's a significant effort. Kelly Richards, our new customer service supervisor, has been really helpful just in the few weeks that she's been here already, because she's done this before. And we're at a pretty critical point, I think. And it's exciting that, so what we're hoping is for the first time this month, we'll be able to, if not remotely read, due to some issues with the network, we'll be able to read all those meters with a handheld unit and import all that data into the new utility billing software, and bill for true consumption that based on the newly installed meters. That's the objective. There's still several things that have to fall into place in order for that to happen, and it has to all fall into place in the next week or so. So we may end up having to do one more billing cycle on Ebbets Pass without consumptive data. We're really trying to avoid that, because we did, the last billing cycle was just base rates, no consumptive data, which on the passes, they're not, unaccustomed to that in the wintertime. The previous billing cycle before that, Tyler has a formula where it estimates consumption based on previous use, and that's the amount that was billed. But we know that created some disparities. That's why we went to zero consumptive data in the last billing cycle. But that's 4 months now of consumptive data that we know is not reflective of actual consumption. So we really want to capture it and get it right this time, because if we have to push that out one more billing cycle, then it'll be 6 months of true up, basically. And that, the longer we go, the bigger potential
The more shock
surprises
we'll
are.
have to our
And we wanna-
customers.
Want to try to avoid those surprises. So, and I think it's also important to point out that, I think the board needs to be aware, we've talked about it before, but now that we are transitioning to these new meters, there will be some surprised customers even without all that, even if we haven't missed a billing cycle as far as the consumption reads go, because a lot of our older meters were under reporting. And so we're already hearing from customers thinking that they've been overcharged, when in fact it's actually just an accurate meter. So that's just something to be aware of, that we'll still, run through the checklist with those customers to make sure there's not a leak, to make sure that it is accurate. But there's, considering the age of our meters that we're replacing, there's a significant likelihood that they were underreporting before, and they're going to be accurate going forward. We should, make sure we track that and see how much of an increase in consumption is attributable to meter performance, but something to be aware of. So it's still a lot of wrinkles to iron out as far as the integration into the billing software and the installation of the meters, but we're I think very close to starting to see the benefits of the project and having it work the way that we want it to, but it's still a tremendous work effort for staff right now. So we will keep the board posted, but I think that this week and next week are pretty big efforts to hopefully get accurate meter reads in the billing data reflected. And we'll certainly keep, it's okay, I think it is probably just Director Underhill impacted done for this billing cycle. So we'll keep you posted if we're not able to get true reads into the billing data this time around, we really will need to do some outreach and let people know
Right.
what's going on, what to expect. We'll work with you on that. Any questions on meters? Okay,
How are things going in Copperopolis?
almost done, I think, right?
Yeah, they expect to be finished by the end of the month in Copperopolis. They got, I think, 400 meters last week, and they have a crew of 4. They, at one point in time, they were contemplating pulling one of their leads to go replace high pressure meters in Rancho. They're about 700, and they decided against that, and they kept that person in Copper, and they're just pushing away.
How much longer till it's district-wide that it's all done?
Well, so the current schedule is through the end. The current
Just
schedule,
asking.
yeah, the current schedule is through the end of May. And so once all of the meters are replaced, then the project calls for really the Mueller needs to push it through its paces, for lack of a better term, confirm everything's up and accurate and operating prior to handing us the keys.
But the focus really shifts to the Jenny Lane service area after this.
Yes, after February, it will be Jenny.
There was some mention about meters without moving parts where you got extremely high pressures. And it struck me as the pressure indicated was like 140 PSI or something. Are those customers made aware of how vulnerable their appliances and stuff are?
Yeah, and the recommendation is that they have their own pressure reducing valve.
They have their
Yeah,
PRVs.
yes.
huh?
Yep.
We offer those at a reduced price or something. Seems like that we.
They're not real expensive anyway, are they? Customer side?
Do most houses have those already? When you build a house, is that required?
If you've got 40 to 60 PSI at their street, they're.
I have high pressure in my house on the CCWD line. I'm at the end of the line, at the end of their line going up, or down 49. And I have one when I moved in, so I mean, I haven't
Yeah,
tested
so
it.
generally what'll happen is if your pressure is above 120, coming from the water purveyor, they're gonna let whoever owns that parcel know you need a PRV. And so if it's, at construction, it'll just go in. And a lot of times folks want them at the house rather than at the meter because they want to take advantage of the higher pressure on the property.
Right, yeah, in the yard, it's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
exactly.
You actually irrigate your yard? Doesn't look like it.
We should talk about a hydropower turbine on your service line.
Right, I have that too.
All right.
Like
Michael,
electricity.
continue.
All right, really good engineering committee meeting yesterday. Appreciate the engineering committee members' flexibility and scheduling and being here 2 days in a row. There was a lot of discussion about the really unbelievable amount of work that's going on in engineering and in operations in terms of project implementation, new design, getting RFPs out, moving projects forward. It's pretty remarkable the amount of work that we're getting done. We're also in the process of, as we develop new projects and implement the CIP, we're updating the CIP continuously. We'll be bringing it back to the board here in the near future to incorporate into the next fiscal year budget, as well as a financing plan to fund the CIP projects over that 5-year period of time, really focusing initially on the first 2 to 3 years of construction that we're targeting, that is going to include some financing and getting that financing put in place while the borrowing terms are favorable and getting those projects implemented as soon as we can. The increase, I think it's worth noting that increase in work is going to require us to increase our in-house capability to push projects out. So we're doing a careful look at staffing versus consultant use and what the proper way to staff that increase in output is. But I think the engineering and ops department would agree I think we've pushed them as hard as we can. And we need to increase, the project delivery even more from this point on. And so that means bringing in more resources. And then the other significant development out of the engineering committee is the engineering committee recommendation to bring forward capacity fee updates for Copperopolis and Valley Springs water and wastewater. So it's 4 different capacity fee updates that we'll be bringing to the board here once that has to be publicly noticed. But those are ready to present to the full board. We had some really productive East Side Groundwater Sustainability Agency meeting. Really thanks in large part to Brad developing a concept of creating committees within the East Side GSA, the member agencies to divide up tasks and I think it will really help get more engagement among the different member agencies and just kind of take a more organized, methodical approach to the work that the Eastside GSA has to do, which is really going to start to ramp up here in the near future. So we need to start getting prepared for that. So I think it was really kind of a really great idea that Brad put forward, and the Eastside GSA members were really responsive to it. And the other big change is Director Thomas was demoted during the meeting, unfortunately.
Rejected.
You were kicked to the curb for what?
No, and actually, I think it's a very a positive development. Director Thomas has been the appointed representative on the Groundwater Authority Joint Powers Board for the East Side GSA for quite some time. And we felt like it was time to revisit that and largely because Walt was the alternate member, and he's no longer.
He's retired.
Yeah, he retired. So at a minimum, we needed to appoint a new alternate, but we also were trying to get more engagement from other members, and so Supervisor Tofinelli stepped up and was willing to take that on. So he'll be the new appointed representative to the JPA board with Director Thomas as the alternate at Supervisor Tofinelli's request. I will add. So. But I think that's a great team, and I think
it was gratifying to finally see some what appeared like enthusiasm on the part of the county to get involved. So that was great.
Yeah, Krista Von Latta has been attending these meetings herself, along with Supervisor Fullendorf, Supervisor Tofinelli. Summer Nicotero is the assistant CAO, super sharp. She's been getting more involved. Lisa Medina, environmental health, has been getting more involved. So much more staff involvement from the county than we've seen before, which is really, really promising. So
On the same subject, is Mike Fisher at Valley Springs in getting more involved, or has he?
not him personally, but
Oh.
Sarah, and I'm not going to try to pronounce her last name, who works for him, has been participating in these meetings, and she's actually volunteered to join one of these committees that Brad set up, which I think is part of
Great.
the brilliance in setting those committees up, is you get more people involved in the actual work. And she's been staying involved and engaged in the process, which is really great.
Very good.
So, yeah, we still have a lot of work to do. We still don't have a governance structure that allows us to do very much. And so we've got, there's still heavy lifting to come, I think, but we're better set up for it now than we were before. Let's see, couple of other, I'll try to skip through these quickly, but I think I mentioned before the water, wildfire, and wine event that is a joint collaboration between Aqua's Region 3 Board and the Mountain Counties Water Resources Association. Planning is moving into a more active phase, so I think we're targeting an October event in Murphy's that will focus on those 3 things, and it'll be, like I said, joint between Aqua and Mountain Counties, and I think it'll be, I think it's exciting. I think it'll be a great event. So,
Are you saying that properly? I thought it had something to do with the fire water.
there are lots of variations, and Director Davidson, I proposed the 4th W, and so far nobody else has taken us up on it. But
October 6th was actually chosen by Mountain Counties, but you said that's a conflict with.
yeah, we're working with Justin on that because there's another Aqua Region event that day. So we're looking, I think right now we're kind of tentatively thinking mid-October, one of those 2 mid-October weekends.
Remember that grape snow.
Right, so we did, and that was the other thing, we didn't want to do the first
It's the
weekend.
8th, I think.
No, that's
first.
the first,
I know, but the Great Stomp is the 8th.
the first.
No, the
The
Great
Girl
Stomp
Stomp is the first, so we didn't want to overlap with that, so we're.
It's gonna be on a Thursday, just a
Oh.
FYI, a Thursday evening, but then
Yeah.
it goes into a Friday morning, meeting.
All
The,
night.
the whole event, as far as the, wine, wildlife, wildfire and water is gonna be on a Thursday during the day and into the evening.
So anyways, there'll be more to come on that. We're still early in the planning process. We're going to engage with lots of local groups as we move forward and yeah, I think it's going to be exciting though.
Place to have it.
The, we received the arrearage funding from the state. I don't want to get too far ahead though. We still have a lot, it's kind of an unbelievably complicated knot to untie to actually get those payments to customers, but we are working through that process. But we actually received the money today. The Forest Meadows Golf Course sale is complete. There are new owners in Forest Meadows. It's a group of owners that are partially, I know at least one of them has a home in Forest Meadows. They're based out of San.
Wasn't the homeowners was
Not the homeowners association, no, but there are
Right,
homeowners
private
in the ownership group.
to operate it?
Own and operate. They're gonna keep it open as a golf course is what they've said and upgrade. They want to open a restaurant that's not just catering to golf. It's like they want it to be a full-time restaurant. They want to bring in some new life to it. So it's exciting.
I had some people that inquired about it to do a high-end RV park.
In course.
Yeah. Oh, that's a big deal now. People,
Oh, I know,
people
we have.
are buying these RV lots for $150,000 and, they bring in their $500,000 motorhome and go from place to place. It's-
Yeah, I don't have that.
No, they are excited about keeping it open as a golf course and we've reached out to them and even before, while they were still in escrow to make sure they knew what they were buying. It's a spray field that people play golf on.
When we first moved here, that Forest Meadows was a hot
Oh,
spot.
yeah, killer, yeah.
It's amazing how
Yeah.
things have changed.
Yeah. So they're excited. They sound committed to making a go of it. So that's good development. Let's see if I have anything else to mention. I think that's it for now.
I have a question on the engineering committee, Michael.
Mhm.
Have you, or are you going to agendize anything about the grease traps? You may have had some discussion or not.
We did not. We-
So can you would make sure you guys agendize that and talk about
Yeah, that's fine.
customer service stuff?
Yeah, we have actually another engineering committee meeting just in 3 weeks. And the primary focus will be on CIP development, I think, but yeah, we can absolutely bring that item.
Thank you.
Will there also be something on the agenda about that commercial distribution options?
Yeah, so we're looking at the policy flexibility or policy alternatives for commercial meters where there've been long-term vacancies, which is a sticky issue, but we want to dive
It's
into
always a
it
hot issue with
and
that. It's
update,
always-
see, take a look at our policy and see if we need to make any changes. So that's something that would come probably at least back to engineering committee and maybe engineering and finance both.
Gotcha.
That's one of those issues we need to make sure we've fully fleshed out before we make any policy changes on that
Okay.
front.
Can that be assured that it's on the next committee
As
meeting?
long as the committee members promise not to complain about long meetings, then yes.
Well, I think
Prioritizing that, it sounds like, is important to you.
Oh, yeah, very important.
so. Make that a priority for them, Michael.
It is, the only caveat or my only reluctance is that it's a process. We have staff that are, have a lot on their plates right now that we're asking to devote time to that issue. We want to survey other agencies to see how other agencies do this, so we're not recreating the wheel if we don't have to. We want to, and anytime you change a policy like that, it's going to be a complicated issue.
Has the committee been able to speak to their comments about it already? Has that discussion taken place? So you just need to bring something back to them?
Not yet.
We
Right,
talked
so-
about it in GM report yesterday during the engineering committee meeting, but we haven't agendized
Okay,
it.
so agendize it and that way you can hear their comments and then go out.
Yep.
In case they want to tell you to do something else.
Yeah.
Or bring it to the board or whatever.
And returning to your comments about the engineering committee, I wish I had mentioned this when the committee meeting was going on, but we had a table around here and the work of that committee is something that I really enjoy immensely in being a part of this group. And the hard work and enthusiasm that all the guys that were around the table there, I don't know, was really palpable. You talked about how much work we have ahead of us, but they're not dissuaded by that at all. They're anxious to get into it. So
I'm glad that's the impression that you.
Even on the utility,
No,
quarterly
you're right.
utility meetings, all the engineers and staff are there, and it's nice to see how involved and how they like being part of that. And
Yeah, really enthusiastic is a good word. Dedicated is another word I would
Dedicated,
use.
yeah.
Really hardworking, really good team.
when we went to the Pizza Plus regarding that grease trap, staff was there and I was really impressed. I was there, I wanted to make sure that, there was a lot of customer service given and they went over and above. It was wonderful. It's wonderful. Anybody else questions for Michael?
I had a question on Mia's monthly report. Where we were asking for $1.3 million for the Copper Cove. And the approach is going to be to break it down into $5 million because asking for 10. will
So,
not work
yeah,
at
and
this
actually,
time.
I had it written down here, but I failed to mention, there was also a legal affairs committee meeting last week that was really productive, and Mia provided a detailed update on that front. So we are still pursuing aggressively 1.3 million for the construction of a tertiary filter in copper. But we're also asking for an increase in the authorization of that funding for an additional 10 million that would cover the dam raise, and that would be spread out. So it was partly on Mia's recommendation, partly just the realities of the project. I think the construction timing was to break that up into more
Palatable.
sums over a 3-year period of time. So the engineering staff are already working with a consultant that the board approved the contract for the design work on Copper Cove. And so that work has already started as far as the design goes. And we want to have that ready to go. So if the funding comes through, we're excited and moving forward on construction. If the funding doesn't come through, we're still going to have to move forward on construction, but we'll have to identify another source.
Yeah, because my question was, will $5 million be adequate amount for what we are,
Yeah,
what
so
we are buying and what we want to do?
we think the discussion was $5 million in construction for that's probably a 2-year project. That dam raise will
Okay,
span
yeah.
that period of time, and it's a $10 million project, and so we just broke it up over those 2 years.
But as I say, for what we want at the time, 5 million will be adequate.
Projection. So it depends on inflation. It depends on final project design. So I can't. I'm not gonna guarantee that. But yeah, that's the engineer's.
Well, I want to guarantee.
That's the engineer's projection at this point.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
All right, anything else?
That's it.
Thank you, Michael. Moving on to board reports, information, and future agenda items. Want to start with you, Bertha? Board reports?
Well, again, we're pretty quiet, waiting for the rain, and we'll look for late February atmospheric. What's our
We need a couple of atmospheric rivers still. Yeah.
river atmospheric, whatever it is,
Atmosphere.
or more March Madness.
That's March Madness. That would be
Take
good.
what we
I'll be
can
back
get.
in tech.
Pretty dry. I drive down and coming into Angels Camp and into San Andreas about this time, the hills are normally so green, so beautiful, and
It's a projected high of 75 on Saturday.
yeah.
I saw that.
So-
Awesome.
Yeah, I chatted with
Good for spring
Jessica,
skiing.
and so what we want to do is make sure that our outreach to our customers is, not any alarming thing, but just hitting that
FYI.
rationing or cutting down or whatever, what's the term?
All right. Thank you, Bertha. Scott?
We had our Mountain Counties meeting last Friday, and yeah, Michael brought up one of the items we talked about was the event, which is going to be in Murphy's in October, and I guess the date is still pending. We also set a date for a tour, going to be starting off in Placerville, be I think it's the Caldor fire that just occurred here between 50 and 88. Yeah, so that, well, the tour will include that, looking for participation. It'd be, it'll be an awesome event. That date is June 24, again, in Placerville area. And then also, last Friday, in addition to the Mountain Counties meeting, we had our CPUD, CCWD ad hoc meeting. And I think, and then we decided to dissolve the ad hoc, we can't keep it going. But this was the first time everybody showed up. They had two directors, we had two directors. The general managers of both agencies were there. Very good discussion, and we're going to be continuing the meetings, but not necessarily as official as an ad hoc, and certainly not a standing committee, but as necessary, we'll decide to meet every once in a while.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot to mention that one. I think it was a very positive meeting and I appreciate CPUD. I don't know if we even discussed this, but Travis
Small.
Justin at Mountain Counties and I keep getting Travis and Justin mixed up all of them. But they agreed to take on staffing camera, which was very much appreciated. Yeah, I thought it was in general a very positive meeting, and we'll keep working with them.
Yeah, a little more on that. It was going to be, it was Mona for a long time, our clerk here prior to Rebecca, and then when she left, Kate from CPUD took it over, and then Kate moved to CCWD and hung on to it. So she did it for 4 or 5 years. Again, we're talking about the clerical, the secretary of camera. At our last camera meeting, Larry general manager at AWA had kind of tentatively, I thought was going to be taking it on, but I guess him looking at staff and how it would work out, we're going to move the whole meeting across the river to over there just to make it easier for everybody. But that kind of fell through. So this is good. This is great news that we're keeping it here in this room, and that CPUD will provide a new.
And then the other quick update on that front is I've been in touch again with the Green Gen folks, the Moke River Battery Storage Project, and they're still moving forward. And so I've asked them for an update to camera on at next Wednesday's meeting, I think it is. So they're going to not be here in person, but they'll provide a virtual update on their progress.
Very
That's
good.
all I got.
Thank you, Scott. Jeff, you have anything? Okay, Russ?
Another significant revelation at the engineering committee meeting yesterday was that the famous Lee and Rowe report on the lift stations and piping and stuff down in Copperopolis that we were crowing about 3 years ago, finally, is that project's going out to bid. Do I
3 years.
hear a drum roll or anything? Oh, man. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to mention, it's just a personal observation, that Patty Christensen left here with really, at her request, no fanfare of any kind. And I would just like to make a proposal that we as a board get her on the telephone sometime and just say, you know.
Give her
Against her
resolution.
wishes, you want to have fanfare anyway.
I don't.
It would be against her will. And there's others. Bob Hanley is a longtime treatment plant operator in Copper, retired at the same time, didn't want any fanfare.
Did we send them something at least?
Staff did.
Appreciation.
A couple checks, probably.
But what did they do in the Christmas vacation to the Jam of the Month Club.
Yeah, the Jelly of the Month.
Jelly of the Month Club. Yeah.
So there's no enthusiasm for getting her on the phone and just say,
Not
Patty,
really?
we miss you?
Yeah.
That's all.
Next meeting?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, great staff, dedicated folks that have moved on recently. Had a lot of turnover.
So what, yes, no, forget it?
On the phone call?
Yeah.
Let me run it by Patty first.
She's, yeah.
That,
You know,
I
a
think that
card would
a
be
good idea.
nice, a thank you card for everything that we could all sign. How about that?
All right.
She's probably
I'm gonna call.
like that. There you go.
On the issue of atmospheric rivers and stuff, that wonderful storm that we had in October, I'm shocked to tell you that I had water for the longest time flowing out of the ground, and today I looked at a 6-foot deep hole that I dug with my auger is still got 3 feet of water in the bottom of it. The water table there on my property is 3 feet below the ground, so.
So you're the reason.
Yeah,
That's where it all is.
we got fantastic amount of water in the ground, which is a very, very good thing.
Well, that storm in my backyard, I just kind of realized it recently, and I'm probably gonna have to talk to Michael. I had one big tree that fell, probably 35 footer, and it happened to fall right on a T-post, which happened to be right above my pasture irrigation line. So it leaked and I actually had to fix that again today, because I just tried to patch it up, but I noticed that there's standing water out there, so it's been running for a couple of months.
We'll get you a leak adjustment.
It
request
drove it
form.
right down in there. The guy that was helping me, he kept telling me, he goes, I think it's what that fence was. I said, no, hell no. But I'd forgotten we had already cut the tree off and removed it and everything. Sure. Drove it right down in it.
Anyway.
So what do you have to report?
Well, I met with Michael and staff out in West Point the other day to meet with a commercial restaurant about their grease trap. So that went really nice. Like I said earlier, I was pretty impressed with staff and all their customer service. I was pleased to see that. We have a T-Stan IRWM meeting the 16th. I'll be in Texas, but I plan on attending that remotely. And the other thing, I mean, so that's it really for my reports, but Michael, for a future agenda item, I did have a call from the property owner regarding slurry line that's looking for water. So I'd like to have you put that on the agenda. And I know we talked offline and there's a couple of options, but I'd like to see something brought to the board with what the plans are to move forward. It sounds like he's been working with staff for a couple of years and would really like to get this moving. You know, if we're going to sell them water, let's get on it. And it sounds like, there's some other options out there for not just him, but his neighbors. So if we can come and make it a priority, bring it back in March to decide, some of the alternatives, reach out to him if you need to and invite him to the meeting to discuss it. We have it on the.
Yeah, Brad and I have been discussing that again recently. It just unfortunately was on the back burner for a little while there, but we need to circle back. We want to try to get a revised draft of a wheeling agreement back to Utica, circle
Right.
back and set up that meeting and see if we can get that nailed down, and then we should be
Well,
good to go as far as starting.
I'd
get
like
water
to see
available.
something that's not so much, here's an update. I'd like to see something that we could say, or not, okay, we should be able to have water to you by June or whatever. And you know what I mean? I don't want to keep kicking the can down the curb, street, whatever you call it. It's like, let's make a decision. Either you can or can't, and then put a game plan into action with a timeline. So the customer will know.
Sounds good.
You're acting more and more like a president.
Except for that. Okay, anybody have anything else?
Camera meeting is
Future
definitely
agenda
next week.
items?
I think it's next Wednesday, is that right?
I've heard they're trying to change it,
Oh.
so they have time to change.
All right, so next regular board meeting is February 23rd, March 9th. I'm supposed to fly back into town on the 22nd. And the weather all looks good in Texas now, so I shouldn't have any issues, but if we do, I'll call the,
They don't
UP
have
and let them-
atmospheric things in Texas.
oh, well, they had all those ice storms, but I've been watching the weather and it's gonna be, I think, a 67 to a high, and I'm good with that. But if by some chance, I can still do it remotely, but I would prefer somebody else to run the meeting instead of me do it remotely, if that happens. I don't expect it. I plan on being here, but if something happens. All right, so we are going to be going into closed session. We have 2 items: conference with real property negotiators, government code 54956.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, thank you. Property parcel number 012-011-011 in Copperopolis. Agency negotiators, Michael Minkler. Negotiating parties, Calaveras Healthy Impact Production Solutions. And price and terms of payment are under negotiation. And the second item is a conference with real property negotiators, APN 055-051-008 in Copperopolis. That would be negotiator Michael Minkler, negotiating parties, CV developers, under negotiations, price and terms of payment. And do we have any public comment before going in? All righty, let's adjourn to public comment or comment, the closed session at 2:47, but we're going to take just a quick break